Class, today we got Parker Howell, who is our assistant wrestling coach, to come talk to you. I've given back the stuff that you've turned to me. Hopefully you've had a little bit of chance while I sat up there and talked for just a little bit. I circled some things there I thought might be interesting. If you think they're interesting, ask afterwards. Or if something comes up that Parker says that you want to ask more about, know more about, please let him know. I'm going to let him kind of explain who he is, his path that got him here, and what he does. Okay, and anything else that he wants to talk about today. And then we'll have a question and answer after. Any questions? Please give a warm welcome, Coach Howell.
All right,
Wow, that's pathetic. Give a warm welcome to Coach Howell.
All right, I'll preface this with, I do cuss quite a bit. I'm gonna try and keep it to a minimum, but sometimes it just comes out, so just don't take offense to that. I guess we'll start from the beginning. I started wrestling when I was 4. I went to daycare at someone's house. The grandparent ran the club that was on the east side of Wichita, and I ended up being best friends with the kid that lived there, and so I ended up just kind of getting taken along for the trip, and I fell in love with it pretty quickly. I was a three-time state champ as a kid. I went to Cape Mount Carmel. I was a 2-time state champ there. I ended up getting recruited by the #1 D2 in the country, Notre Dame College. It's in Cleveland, Ohio. It's not the real Notre Dame. Very shitty place. Bare bones. There was nothing great about it. We were good at wrestling and rugby, and that's about it. Ended up winning 2 dual national titles while I was there. Individual national runners-up twice. I only wrestled there for 2 years. My freshman year, I had 2 concussions. They were pretty bad. I got cleared on a Thursday from the first one. My coach made me wrestle that Saturday, and I got knocked out cold. So I was out for about 3 months. I couldn't pass the computer test. And I will tell you, I took that computer test not in the best state of mind, and I still couldn't pass it for 3 months. My sophomore year, I partially tore my MCL. I could barely walk, but I didn't miss a day of practice or a competition because I wasn't allowed. I had tape from my hip to my ankle every single day. I ended up having to shave my leg because they wouldn't pre-wrap it. It would just slide otherwise, so I was just ripping my leg hair out the whole time, so I had to shave it. It was at that point that I had a conversation with my parents, and we decided the best thing for me and my health was to stop competing. I probably need new knees, new hips, new shoulders if I had competed 4 or 5 years in college. I ended up going back, just going to school at Wichita State. The personal side of this story is I didn't know who I was without wrestling, which led me to, I just started drinking. All I did was drink while I was at Wichita State. Got pretty bad. I mean, I was drinking every night. I was still coaching on the side. But I didn't know what to do with myself without I didn't have coaches to hold me accountable. I didn't have a team to hold me accountable. And so I went down a dark path for a little bit. I coached at my high school, spent 2 years there. Coached one kid, Michael Spangler. He's a 2-time national champ here. He went on to Lock Haven, and then he went to Indiana. And then I took a 2-year break. So I moved back with my parents so I could get sober. Started working at Target. Don't recommend. Not fun. Then after 2 years of that, I moved back to Wichita, continued to work at Target, went back to my high school, coached another kid to go D1, and then we were out at a tournament in Oklahoma, and I was trying to get my kid recruited. He wasn't really getting the looks I thought he deserved. And so I was talking to this coach, and come to find out, one of my good wrestling buddies was his assistant, and then they started recruiting me when I was 26 years old, and I heavily contemplated going back and competing Division III. And then I got hurt again, naturally. And so I told them, I was like, hey, I can't do this, guys. And they told me, just come anyway, you can coach with us. So I ended up going out to the University of Ozarks, D3 in Clarksville, Arkansas. An interesting place. The town's pretty similar to Pratt. It's a little more run down. But the college was the biggest employer in the city. The only other thing was a Tyson factory, so it often smelled like Pratt does, like shit. The first year I was there, I was just a volunteer assistant. That was tough. I kind of had to bet on myself that I could make this work. I had $15,000 in my bank account. By the end of the year, I had zero. I had to pay rent, pay for meals. I just had to make it work. That following summer, I got put on full-time as the assistant, and we also took on the women's program at that point. So we were coaching the men's and the women's. A lot of challenges with that. Women's wrestling doesn't follow the same rule set as the men. They do freestyle, men do folk style. It's not that we didn't know freestyle, we all competed it, but it's the developing of practice plans, different tournaments. There's so many other things to account for when it's a whole different style, and you can't go to the same place. After a year there, me and my head coach, we had some differences in coaching philosophy, if you will. I was going to take over the women's program solely by myself. Coach Kepley called. I was like, I'll hear you out. I came out to Pratt. Got offered the job. And by the time I got back to Clarksville, the women's program was cut. There was no job left. I was pretty set on coming here anyway, but the decision was kind of taken from me, and I took the job here, started 2 months later. I guess on the other side of things, I've known Kepley for, 10 years. We've been good friends. We both coach the Kansas national team, travel the country. Been to, before I got here, I'd been to Vegas with him, Fargo, North Dakota, Oklahoma City, Nebraska. Been all over the place. We had a good relationship, so I kind of knew what I was walking into with him. Not a lot of assistants necessarily get that perk. You kind of just take what you can get and pray to God it works out. So it's kind of how I ended up here. I guess I'll open the floor to you guys for some questions. And I'm just gonna let you all know everybody's gonna ask a question. I do it to my guys when we have people speak to us, everybody's asking a question. And yes, there are stupid questions. I'm not one of those people that there's no bad questions, there are bad questions. What's up?
What are some skills that you gained from the coaching aspect of wrestling that you didn't have while you were competing?
I think the big one is just kind of like people skills. When you compete, you don't have to talk to people. You got to talk to your own people, and that's about it. Coaching is a lot of relationship building. On the JUCO side, you have to have good relationships with the 4 years. Got to have good relationship with the high school coaches. No relationships, and you end up with no kids, and then your job's on the line. You've got to be willing to just get out and talk to whoever, even if you think it's a shitty program. Every shitty program gets a good kid every now and again, so you got to be able to have that relationship ready so you can try and get that kid. I think another big one is the willingness to be vulnerable. I'm really big on that. I harken to our guys. I think as athletes, we try to internalize a lot of things and not make our problems other people's problems, but that's not what being vulnerable is. It's letting people in, it's letting people help. And as a coach, you have to be vulnerable so your athletes feel open enough to come to you when it's their time to be vulnerable. You've always got to be open, no bullshitting, let them know how it is.
How would you explain wrestling to someone who doesn't understand it?
I knew that one was coming. The big thing, it's all about control, controlling somebody else. You get points based on how you control them. Take them to the mat, that you get 3, hold them on their back, 2, 3, or 4 points, depending on how long. And I guess that's folk style. On the other side of things, like on the women's side, it's more about taking them where you want them to go, less about control. You don't have to hold them in any position. Once you go through that position, you get points. But I think the easiest way to explain it is just controlling another human.
How do you handle like injuries or like team conflicts?
Depends on the athlete. It's all fluid. How I talk to Billy is not how I'm going to talk to John. Some athletes can take the tough love. Others will shut down if you chew their ass. You have to, every situation is unique. Even if you have experienced the same exact thing, it's never going to play out the exact same way. You can usually get the end result that you think you're going to get every time, but you have to cater to every athlete in a different way.
What do you enjoy the most about being a coach?
Seeing growth. 18 to 22 is very formative years in people's lives, and you take an 18-year-old that doesn't know shit about anything, and you can teach them how to become a man, become a woman. The biggest thing that I see in this last couple of years is the students coming in don't know how to take accountability, like at all. And teaching them what accountability is and how to hold themselves accountable, hold their teammates accountable. That's like the biggest thing that I enjoy seeing the growth in people becoming men, becoming women.
What's on the schedule for us throughout the week? That's not
Like, what's our practice schedule?
Yeah.
So a general day in season, would be practice at 5:15 in the morning, done by 7. Then they'll have an individual twice a week, just throughout the day whenever, class allows for an hour. Come in with partner, 1 hour drill, more individual work on with those two needs specifically. And then we'll have study hall from 3:45 to 5 every day. And then that's it. Unless we have a student activity, we do make them go to damn near every student activity, whether they like it or not. So you'll see them at open mic night tonight. I'm sure they'll thoroughly enjoy that. Yeah.
What responsibilities do you take on as an assistant coach?
It's whatever the hell Kathleen wants me to do. The big ones are recruiting. I run study hall, I do grade checks, make sure everybody's where they need to be. If they need to go to student success, I make sure they get there. I do all the graphic design work. And I didn't know how to do that one bit until I started messing around in August, and every flyer you see that we print, I made. But the biggest piece is recruiting. If we don't recruit, we don't have a job, so. So we have 2 different match days. So first semester is, we call them opens, they're just tournaments. Completely individual, but I will leave, depending on where it's at, we'll leave here, weigh in 2 hours before we compete. And we usually compete for like 12 hours. We go from like 9 to 9 basically, most tournament days. Then like a duel, which is what we would have here, that you would see on a Tuesday night, whatever. We practice in the morning, like usual. Again, weigh in 2 hours before. Get a warm-up in. Duels, that's just the starters. 10 matches, and that's our day.
Do you teach any values beyond winning?
Yeah. We rarely talk about winning. Winning's a byproduct of what we do. It's not what we aim to do. Our goal is to get as good as we can in 2 years and ship you off to a 4-year. We probably talk about winning once a year, and it's at the national tournament. That's the only time we talk about winning. It's more about hard work, accountability, being a family. If you can master those, you will win. When you focus on the wins and losses, you lose sight of developing. You end up in this peak and valleys of high and low emotions that kind of overshadows the importance of development. I think it's easy to lose and be like, oh, we gotta get better. But when you win, it's easy to be like, okay, we're where we need to be, and kind of lose focus of getting better. jobs in front of you. Are there shitty coaching jobs? Yeah. But if that's the one that gets your foot in the door, don't be afraid to take it. You have the power to change things. You've got to be so willing to do whatever it takes to be successful. If that means you have to change every protocol and procedure, so be it. If that means you have to cut half your team, it has to happen. I've seen it 1,000 times where a coach takes over a program and they have problem kids that refuse to listen, refuse to change, and they are athletes that win. They never turn that program around. It's not fun to have to cut kids because they won't change. Because our job is to help them be better and grow as a person. But at some point, the program and the team have to take a priority. And if that means that you're going to be really bad for 1 or 2 years, that's kind of the sacrifice you have to make to be successful.
How do you track a wrestler's progress in the season?
What was that?
How do you track a wrestler's progress in the season?
It's pretty easy to see. You see it in the practice room. Yeah, you can see it through wins and losses, but wrestling's also a very volatile sport. You can be winning 14-0 and the match is over 3 seconds later and you lose. It's not like a softball where you're up 14 and 1 home run isn't going to tie it. It's just not the same. So tracking wins and losses isn't the end all be all. You kind of just have to see how they look in practice and whether they're buying into the style that we do, or if they're trying to revert back to what made them successful in high school, because it doesn't always translate.
Do you provide your wrestlers with food plans to stay in like certain weight groups?
In extreme cases, yes. For the most part, we don't cut weight like most places. Do we lose weight? Yeah. But most places you're losing well over 10% of your body weight weekly. We don't really have guys get more than 10 pounds over. And to you guys, that probably sounds like a lot, but every one of you has 8 pounds of water weight on you that you can sweat out in 4 hours. It's not bad. I've lost 15 pounds in a day when I weighed. I was cut down to 98 and I lost 15 pounds in a single day. So it's different. Some people hold weight differently. Some people just naturally get really pudgy, and those are usually the guys that have to get on an eating plan, get into a deficit, to cut out that fat that they put on. But generally, we don't know. They know, the athletes we get know what they're doing when it comes to cutting weight. Like if we recruited a bunch of Oklahoma kids, for instance, they cut weight like it's insane. They just don't eat and they don't drink. It's not sustainable. You can't practice like that. It's the old school way of doing things. That's how I grew up doing it, but it's just not the way anymore. We have more science to go off of.
They have the like do the program start to be successful.
Was that?
Like you said earlier, they try to go back to the high school style and everything. Do they have to like do the current program style to be successful, or can they like?
No, they don't have to. Yeah, it's the same sport. The level jump is so drastic that you can get away with things in high school that you'll never get away with in college. If you can't hand fight, for instance, you're gonna just get beat up. You have to learn how to do that. In high school, you can get away with being pretty bad on bottom. If you're on bottom in college, you're gonna get beat to shit. You have to develop that reversion to their old style. Rarely works out. It's not that our style is the only style that works in college, it's just the one we go with. We're very well versed in how to be successful with that style. And it fits every body type, it fits every weight class. It's pretty universal, so it's kind of why we go with that, the one we go with.
What are your plans for the future?
I don't know what I'm having for lunch.
Thank you.
I'd love to be a head coach someday. Part of the reason I came here is to learn from Kepley. It's not that I didn't feel ready, it's that I knew I had more learning that I could afford to take. I kind of got started late in college coaching. On the wrestling side of things, typically you graduate and you get a GA spot, and that's your foot in the door. My jump to college coaching is very unique for wrestling. Usually once you go to high school, you're kind of stuck there. It's very hard to make the jump into college. Yeah, I'd love to be a head coach at some point. I don't know when that is. I know I said earlier, like, you gotta be open to any job. I've afforded myself the ability to be picky when it comes to picking a head coaching job. I'm a pretty desirable hire at this point. I've got good credentials, I've got good experience, I have results, so I'm kind of more or less waiting on somewhere I want to be. Yeah.
What's your thoughts about the biggest difference in skill that an assistant coach needs to develop in order to translate well to being a head coach?
Probably multitasking. There's so many things behind the scenes that most of you guys probably realize it, but like the general population just doesn't see. We've got to run a budget, we've got to fundraise, we got to keep their grades in check, we've got to do whatever our AD says. There's so many things going on. I'll be the first to say I could get my workday done in 4 hours if I wanted to. most of the time, but then there's also days where I'm in the office for 18 hours straight, grinding the whole time. It's a ebb and flow of things with coaching, so you gotta have the ability to make recruiting calls and work on a graphic all at the same time. Like you gotta be able to do 1,000 things at once.
With having such a big squad, how do you and Kepley decide who makes the starting team, and then what do the rest of them do if they don't make the starting team?
So I'll start with, so the open tournaments I was talking About, we travel everybody competes at those. So, it's, to my understanding, it's more like track than anything. So they're competing head to head. You have guys wrestle the same guy. Occasionally they wrestle each other, which we're kind of a different program, and the fact that most places they'll just do a wrestle off, they wrestle each other in practice, and that decides who the starter is. That's a very old school way of doing things. Most of the time that does work, but there are times it just doesn't. And so, I mean, we're looking at everything, results, because the guy that loses to the teammate, he could finish first at a tournament that guy didn't place that. Happens all the time. And when it comes down to things, it's how you compete with other people, not your teammates. You know what your teammate's gonna do, you know how they wrestle, you know what they're bad at, so you can wrestle them. I mean, we're looking at grades, are they late? Everything comes into play when we're looking at who the starter is.
Anybody else?
Who's the best wrestler that's come through the doors while you've been here? Who do you think?
Melton Poe, he was national champ last year. He's different. He was very good. He's at Iowa State right now, getting NIL money. It's very rare in wrestling. There's not a lot of money to be given, and for him to go to a place like Iowa State and be somebody that receives NIL money speaks to the level he's at.
Any more? All right. Give Coach Howell a round of applause. Thank you.